third grade. I thought while we are doing our distance learning, we could do a read aloud together, aside from Charlotte's Web. I thought we would start with the book The Family Under the Bridge by Natalie Savage Carlson. Pictures by Garth Williams. He's also the illustrator of Charlotte's Web. So let's get started. Chapter 1. Once there was an old hobo named Armand who wouldn't have lived anywhere but Paris, so that is where he lived. Everything that he owned could be pushed around in an old baby buggy without any hood, so he had no worries about rents or burglars. All the ragged clothing he owned was on his back, so he didn't need to bother with trunks or dry cleaners. It was easy for him to move from one hidey hole to another, so that is what he was doing one late morning in December. It was a cold day with a gray sky hanging on the very chimney pots of Paris, but Armand did not mind because he had a tickly feeling that something new and exciting was going to happen to him today. He hummed a gay tune to himself as he pushed his buggy through the flower market at the side of Notre Dame Cathedral. The flowers reminded him that someday it would be spring, even though it wasn't winter. It wasn't bad winter yet. There were pots of fragile hyacinths and tulips crowded together on planks in front of the stalls. There were pink carnations and oleanders in great tin pails. Most of all, there were bouquets of red beaded holly, clumps of white pearled mistletoe, and little green fir trees because soon it would be Christmas. Armand's keen eye caught sight of a pile of broken branches and wilted flowers swept away from one stall. Annabelle was written over the stall, and Armand touched his black beret to the stocky woman whose blue work apron hung below her woolly coat. "By your leave, and in gratitude for your generosity, madam," he said to the woman, who was surely Annabelle. He piled the broken branches on top of his belongings in the baby buggy. Then he fastidiously picked a sprig of dried holly from the litter and pulled it through his torn buttonhole. He wanted to look his best for whatever gay adventure was waiting for him this day. The woman, who must have been Annabelle, only frowned at Armand as he trundled his buggy toward the Rue du Coeur. Past the ancient buildings he shuffled. His buggy headed for the far branch of the Seine River. But as he entered the square in front of Notre Dame, a hand grasped his arm from behind. "Your fortune, monsieur," wailed a musical voice. "You will meet with adventure today." Armand let go of the handle of the buggy and whirled around to face a gypsy woman in a short fur coat and full flowered skirt. He gave her a gap-toothed smile. "You, Mireille," he greeted her. "Your people are back in Paris for the winter?" The gypsy woman's dark face beamed under her blue scarf. "Doesn't one always spend winters in Paris?" she asked, as if she were a woman of fashion. "But you have taken to the streets so early." Armand shrugged his shoulders under the long overcoat that almost reached to his ankles. "It's back under the bridge for me," he answered. "I've had enough of the crowded corners and tight alleys in the Place Maubert, and I'm tired of sorting rags for that junk dealer. I'm ready for that adventure you're promising." Mireille could understand. "That courtyard we rent seems like a cage after the freedom of the long winding roads," she said. "But the men have found plenty of work for the winter. A city with as many restaurants as Paris has more than enough pots and pans to be mended. Of course the children can talk of nothing but the fields and woods of spring." "I can't abide children," grumped Armand. "Starlings they are, witless, twittering little pests." Mireille shook her finger at him. "You think you don't like children," she said, "but it is only that you are afraid of them. You are afraid of the sly thing. The sly things will steal your heart if they find out you have one." Armand grunted and took the handle of the buggy again. Mireille waved him away, swaying on her bare feet squeezed into tarnished silvered sandals. "If you change your mind about the bridge, you can come to live with us," she invited. "We're beyond the Halles, where they're tearing down the buildings near the old Court of Miracles." Armand tramped under the black leafless trees and around the cathedral by the riverside without even giving it a glance. In the green park behind the flying buttresses, some street urchins were loitering. Two of them played at dueling, while a third smaller one watched, munching a red apple. The swordsmen, holding out imaginary swords, circled each other. Closer and closer came the clenched fists. Then the boys forgot their imaginary swords and began punching each other. They stopped their play as Aramond went by. "Look at that funny old tramp," one cried to his playmates. Aramond looked around because he wanted to see the funny old tramp too. It must be that droll Louis with his tall black hat and baggy pants. Then he realized that he was the funny old tramp. "Keep a civil tongue in your head, starling," he ordered. He fingered the holly in his lapel. "If you don't, I'll tell my friend Father Christmas about your rude manners. Then you'll get nothing but a bunch of sticks like these on my buggy." The boys looked at him with awe. Father Christmas is the Santa Claus of France. He rides down from the north on his little gray donkey and leaves presents for good children. The small boy held out his half-eaten apple. "Are you hungry, monsieur?" he asked. "Would you like the rest of this apple?" But the biggest boy mockingly punched the air with his fist. "Poof!" he scoffed. "There's no Father Christmas. He's just make-believe." "If you doubt my word," said Aramond with dignity, "just take a look at the Louvre store. You'll find him on the mezzanine floor." He grinned like one of the roguish gargoyles on the cathedral. There really was a Father Christmas, and it was his friend Camille who felt the urge to work when the weather turned cold.